Hey guys, this is No Frag Limit here. We'll be putting some stuff online today. Would like to test one of the new Apoka Warlords, Etekh the Awekener. As declared Necron player, kind of feel obliged to go and test this guy. He's not officially released, there's some work still going on. He is, however, possible to access on the tabletop simulator module that it's been created by the Eric Lopez. However, we will be today just deck building around this guy and show some of the combos and some of the possibilities. The deck building skill is really important if you really want to be a competitive player. The deck building is a massive part of your job that you want to do around it. Without it, you won't be really any successful ever. So the way you look at the beginning, it's the warlord itself. This guy has a deploy action, choose a trait other than lit. Each army unit in your deck anywhere is considered to have that trait until end of the phase, end of the round. Limit once per phase. So you literally multiplying certain trait, and you choose by whatever you like. Either it's a vehicle or I don't know, space wolf or whatever, and you basically assign that trait to any army unit card that you have in your hand, in your discard pile, in your deck, or in play. It is a powerful ability, I would say, and probably one of the reasons why this guy hasn't been officially released, because there are some certain combos that interact with cards specifying exactly the trait interaction, and it could be powerful. And I will show some examples today to see why this guy could be overpowered. And why probably needs to be changed or tweaked a little bit. Not all the cards are actually bad. He's really cool to play. It's just in certain combos it's not really comfortable to face. Let's have a look first on his signature unit. He's in the Praetorians. One cost, one command hammer, one free. Now, bit of beef, I would say. A little bit too much for one resource. And he has the cool ability when this unit enters play to change your enslavement dial. So basically, you could choose the enslavement dial on the beginning of the round, deploy this guy. After deploying some of the stuff that you wanted from non-Necron faction, and then change the enslavement dial again and deploy something else. So pretty cool, already telling you that this guy probably should be carrying a lot of non-Necron units. This is going to be multi-faction deck that's probably going to create some of the interesting combos. Now the second signature card is the support. And the support, Hollow Sun. While you control no unit of a faction, you may ignore your enslavement dial while deploying for that faction. So basically, if you already have chosen the enslavement dial and you deployed something from a faction that matched that enslavement dial, you can actually ignore it and deploy another non-Necron unit that is different than what you did before, but just to remind that you don't have that faction in play yet. So essentially you could do 2 different factions, even 3 different factions if you have this signature unit, which is pretty cool. And it tells you again, those 2 cards straight away sets you on a non-Necron heavy deck building mode. You kind of need to think what you want to do, how you're going to build it, what else you can add to interact with that. That's pretty cool. And all you know probably the Nahumek, who basically sets the or minus the HP from a target unit on a planet, match the number of non-Necron factions you control. Like this is kind of similar but way more powerful, and I'll tell you why. So some time ago Apoka released those pledge cards. Pledge cards are the support cards that essentially they need to be included into your starting hand. So they're not exactly a part of the signature squad. However, they need to be in your starting hand. So for example, if your Warlord is 7/7, you are essentially just drawing 6 cards and add that one as a 7th card. And the rule of the pledge is that whenever your first round, first move occurs, that you need to play that pledge card first, regardless of whatever else you have. So not only it needs to be in your starting hand, you also need to play it first. Now, I looked on the pledge cards that for the Necron and Celtic Dynasty, it's the best, or probably even specifically designed for Etekh itself. Have a look after you deploy. Reaction after you deploy a non-Necron unit, there's reaction. Exhaust the support to give it plus X HP until end of your round. X equals the number of factions in your discard pile. Then you may set your enslavement dial to any faction. If you do so, this support does not ready during the next headquarter phase. So not only after deployment of non-unit you exhaust the support to give it a boost in HP, and that depends what you have in your discard pile. If you have 2, 3, 4 different factions there, you're basically buffing its HP. But also you have a choice that you may set your enslavement dial onto something else, and again change the deployment or put something different that you intended to. So it's all very confusing for the opponent, because you normally playing the Necron, the opponent sets the enslavement dial, and you kind of think straight away, okay, I'm gonna know 2, 3 good units from that faction. I can think what he's going to deploy or what is going to come into action soon or during that round. Where this happens with the signature unit, signature support, and this pledge, the enslavement dial just goes all over the place. But it does give some awesome possibilities, and obviously when you choose that option, you do not ready the support in a headquarter phase. So it's been tweaked a little bit from the initial phase, where I remember it didn't have the last line, but it's still very powerful, and it's literally a first card that you always have in your hand. So it will always happen. Now it costs only 1, and it's really good. So it definitely helps Etekh, and definitely helps to play multi-faction. So if you're looking on the support, unit, and this pledge, there's no other way to build Etekh. I mean, you could argue with it, you could think of the lot of Necron combos that you run, but then you just literally ignoring ability of those 3 cards. No, you really want to combine, and I will show you now how it's going to go. Let me just present the rest of the signature cards, and then we can go over it. Attachment Crown of Control that you attach to your Warlord has it gains Sweep 1. Now, for those who are not familiar with this Sweep or Retaliate abilities, Sweep basically adds 1 damage after attack of that unit. It also deals like 1 damage to and any other next target on the same planet. So it's kind of a sweeping attack. Ability for the Warlord, probably pretty cool, but the most importantly has an action. Exhaust this attachment to remove up to 2 damage from among units you control on this planet. So it could be a Warlord itself or any other unit that you wanted to protect during the battle where the Warlord is present. I would say pretty cool. Again, Illuminor would really be jealous about this stuff with his own signature attachment. That actually thing removes 2 damage. I know it doesn't give him resource, but it's still really cool. So signature event, the Eldritch Reaping, it's a little bit weird actually. Its tactic action, your opponent announces a number between 0 to 5. You choose the other number, and player with the highest number must deal an equal amount of indirect damage among units he controls. If that player is you, draw 2 cards and gain 2 resources. So basically you either choosing 5, 4, or you're choosing 0, and if you can afford to deal damage between your units, then yeah, pretty cool, you just get the draw and the resource. And if your opponent doesn't really want to do it, he just chooses 0, and he basically gives you that ability. Pretty powerful, but again, it's a 0 cost, a little bit too cheap, and it kind of feels a little bit like tombola, really. Just doing the roulette casino style choices here. Not a fan of it. However, haven't been really have a possibility to test it in play yet in specific situations. Most of the time it was discarded as a shield, but I can imagine it does change quite a lot. So definitely not a 0 event card, because it could really play well, especially if you have that signature attachment on your warlord already. Some of that damage that you deal is irrelevant because you're going to heal it within a second. So I will increase the cost probably here, but that's the least favorite card of that squad, I would say. Okay, so just going back to our pledge card, the support that we will have within the first move anyway. We're going to look onto some of the cards that we could add in our deck, to how to build it properly, how to make it work with the Warlord ability copying trait. And I pulled from Octagon some of the interesting examples. I did look on the Necron units, on a lot of possibilities. I read through all the playtesting forum thread where the guys were really for 1 year putting their ideas, what they kind of created, and I need to say their ideas were really centralized around some sort of the idea, but never been scattered all over. And I think multi-factional aspect of that deck and the abilities that in the cards of those that I just described are really just allowing you to create something that is very unpredictable by having a lot of different cards from different factions. And Necrons, absolutely minimal. Necron units, probably just those that giving the overall bonuses to non-Necron faction units. And to be honest, if you look on the Necron cards in overall, all of the Necron events or attachments, they are all allowing to be played only on Necron units. So if you're thinking about any attachments or any events, then you kind of trying to force yourself to put some of the Necron units into that deck as well, because you're just trying to balance the one effect or another. Now by doing this, you're obviously taking away from the ability of the Warlord and from some of the cards that you have. So you need to really decide. There's not a 50-50 way where you can split and try to balance the power. You need to centralize and focus on one aspect. Like I said, multi-factional cards like this pledge, signature unit, signature support, does really tell you which way you want to go. And the most important card that you would say is a Celtic Complex support, which is limited, but after you deploy a unit from a non-faction, if you control no other units from that faction, gain 1 resource or draw 1 card. Now, just to say, it's not only a unique card, you can have 3 copies in the game, and I did have it for at least 2-3 times where I had 1 copy in the first round, 2nd copy in the second round, and another copy coming within 2-3 rounds. And I had a couple times 3 copies working for me each one time where I deploy something. I'm either getting 1-2 resource, or 1 resource 1 card, or 1 card 2 resources. It's for me to decide if I don't have the unit from that faction already in play. It could be actually even working twice or 2-3 times if you're really lucky with your draw. So what it tells me straight away, what you want to include in your deck are those really, really cheap units for 0 cost or 1 cost that really just gives you something but could react with the Celtic complex. In essence, by any deployment from the faction that you don't have, you're actually boosting your economy because those supports, they're working for you. And here is the example of the unit that works really well with that Celtic complex. It's the Earthcast Technician. You can have an Earthcast Technician in your hand. You set your enslavement dial on Tau, obviously, because you intend to deploy this guy. And let's say that you actually used your Warlord ability, which basically says that you choose the trade and you give a drone trade to all your army units, wherever they are, right? And then you deploy this guy, a cast technician. Now, whenever he enters the play, you search top 6 cards in your deck for attachment or drone card, reveal it, add it to your hand. So any unit out of those 6 cards, whatever it is, automatically has that drone trade. So you basically, out of 6 cards, you're definitely going to get the unit. And especially like I said, there's no Necron events, no Necron attachments that could work with the other factions, that you will have something like 32 units within your deck, just to make it work, really. So there's no way with the Earthcast Technician you're not getting a free unit. Now, really cool thing, and it happened to me before, you actually already set this trade on the drone. There is a possibility that happens to you, that you get one Earthcast Technician, set the drone, you get 6 cards, you're finding another copy of Earthcast Technician, and you take it to your hand. Now, as the Warlord already has been set on the drone, you do it again. You deploy the Technician, and you search for another 6 cards, and you get another unit to your hand. So yes, it's pretty sick, especially if you have already 1 or 2 Celtic complex in the play. That basically gives you the 1 or 2 resource for that initial deployment in the first place. So really you just equal the cost or gain, or in the end you draw just 2 free cards. Now, it did happen to me within the game today, that where I have actually 3 copies coming, one after another one after another one, and opponent was really disgusted by this. So yeah, pretty sick. Now, talking about the cheap economy and anything that boosting to your deployment costs, you can have a look at this guy. And this is not my idea. I actually borrow it from a friend of mine. So, Splintered Path Acolyte. You basically set your Warlord ability and you give the Demon trait to all of the units. And then with Splintered Path Acolyte, you can reduce the cost anything of you want to deploy by 2. So it is an economy boost, and it works really well. And you can imagine you are a chaos player, you're really building your deck, and this guy is there because you have a lot of demons. Now, every single thing that I want to deploy could be treated as a demon, so whenever I really lack in the resources and I have this guy, I choose demon trade. And yeah, it's sometimes it's heartbreaking. If I have 2 of those guys again, it's just 4 cost army unit coming out of nowhere. It's pretty disgusting, especially after I already kind of splashed all my resources all over the place. It could be a nice surprise. Now, next unit that really helps me to get stuff for free, it's the Blockclaw pack. Let's say that during the deployment phase, I deployed this guy somewhere, and I choose to give a Space Wolf trade to all of my army cards. And you have no other choice. There's a final battle, or there is basically something that you need to commit to, and I know very well that you're going to do it, otherwise you're going to lose the game. I just put this guy there, and when you commit your Warlord to that planet, I'm exhausting this guy to put a Space Wolf unit into play from your hand at this planet. And this is pretty sick because eventually I could put anything that I have in my hand for free. And that's where the real question starts. Okay, this is a little bit too much because, as you know, it doesn't really limit you to elite, non-elite. You could basically say, yeah, this is a Space Wolf, and here you go, Monolith coming. Or in my case, actually a Doomsday Arc that is 6 cost. And you can be pretty sure I have 2 free non-factions already there, including my Space Wolves. I'm actually getting area effect 2 or 3. Yeah, I'm breaking your balls straight away, and you didn't even know it. I mean, you could probably suspect by just looking on what's happening here. So, yup, but that's not all. I'm telling you, actually, I'm gonna go a bit further with this. Zealous Cantus, that's the unit that I really want to play early, and you know, whatever I discard, let's say, because I do run the recycle, whatever units I discard from my hand, and I use the Warlord abilities, so it's okay, it's the Grey Knight or SL, sorry, and then basically whatever I discarded there, it's adding a Fate icon. Not so powerful, so I'm still questioning if this is actually going to work. It did work for me on the first round, first battle, whenever I actually discarded something, or on the second battle after the first when something left. Situational, really, but it could give you a boost. And remember about the ability of this card, that it basically plays one Fate icon onto army unit twice per phase. So it could be this card from recycle in the deployment phase, or it could be the something that died. But the Fate icon can go on any army unit, so it doesn't need to be on this unit itself. So yeah, it kind of can work like a shield to your army. Pretty cool, I would say. Next in my collection, Carbolite Harriers. Now this is actually quite cool. I have a lot of those cheap units, 1-2 cost, 1-2 cost. Let's say I have this somewhere in play, and I decide to deploy anything really cheap. It's just adding 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, ping, 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 to whatever large army you have on the planet. If you really occupy that with a swarm of small units, I just put this guy and start deploying those little small annoying units and start dealing you damage. It's not so powerful, but it does really change the game sometimes. In those really dry situations when you have 1-2 cards, no resources, and you really need that planet where it generates the income for you, especially in the beginning or at the end. It could work. Now, Eager Recruit as a must-have with just those ever-changing enslavement dials. This is pretty fantastic to surprise, but also to give the additional bonus to my combat. So you cannot expect anything, and really it just gives you that flow where you have some hidden actions more than just simple deployment and deploy phase, and then opponent just he kind of decides what you do basing on the information that you have. As I don't have any events in my deck other than recycle, Scout, it is kind of one of the disguised cards that really bring the element of surprise. Now, I do have an event that works with my Warlord, and I think it's really important, is Counterblow. Counterblow protects my Warlord, basically. As you really quickly recognize that his ability is powerful, you try to get rid of him. So, if you get rid of him, then you think you may win the game. Now, it's not so easy to kill him. If I have copies of the Counterblow, when I ever choose a defender, I deal 1 unpreventable damage, and if this warlord was actually exhausted, I draw the card. It works pretty well, and I have 2 free copies in my hand. It makes it pretty safe, and I could trigger only 1 max per round, but I can really have it with me all the time. It just feels better. And if I have any shields, that's also works pretty well. Now I'm going to go to the really sick combos and the really sick guys that really could be annoying, and I will show you this. Now, for each ethereal unit you control at this planet, this unit gains +2 attack and 1 command icon. In deployment phase I set the ethereal trade, and in the final battle or wherever there's a lot of small units with this guy around, he is basically loaded not only with the attack, also with the command. Pretty dangerous guy, I would say. Still beatable, not really that dangerous. But look at this guy, Neophyte Printing. Like, he is having a forced reaction. So after this unit damages an enemy unit by attack, sacrifice it to search top 6 cards of your deck for a Black Templar unit with cost 4 or lower. Put that unit into play in this planet and shuffle the remaining cards of your decks. So you sacrifice this guy, and if he's able to deal that 1 damage, he's been sacrificed. And as you already decided before in the deployment phase that you give a Black Templar trade to all your army cards, you look on those 6 and you choose whatever you like with 4 costs, you put it there. Now, pretty disgusting, right? Imagine I have 2 copies in a battle, and they're all the little small guys, yeah? And those small guys are actually boosting this guy, alright? And so this guy is powerful because they exist, and you need to shield, in all costs, you need to shield those little attacks from them, because otherwise they will just multiply or clone themselves or mutate into something much bigger. And this guy has a clear path to kill you with 1 blow. Not a pleasant situation to be in with, really. And last but not least, the most disgusting card that I am running in my deck, Shadowthorn's Venom. Look at this guy. Yeah, I don't care he's elite, I don't care he costs a lot. I keep him for later stage of the game where I already have a lot of units in play. Now, after you deploy this unit, you may move each Kabbalite army unit you control to a red planet. You need to think about that, you need to pre-plan this move. But let's say it's the last round of the game and you're making some stupid silly deployments, ignoring exactly the target that you should be defending. Your opponent needs to, let's say you already have some planets in your victory display and you can choose between 2 now. This is last 2 rounds probably to play, and your opponent see you deploying on the first planet, and then he thinks, okay, actually the battle's going to be there, he's deploying. I do that very often when I have a lot of resources, but let's say I deploy 1 or 2 small units, and I have 1 or 2 cards left in my hand. My opponent could be reluctant to think, yeah, this is where I'm going to be, or even if my army is already sitting there, it doesn't mean anything, because when I deploy this guy, you multiply the Kabbalite trade in the deployment phase, you deploy this guy and whole army just freaking moving on the left or on the right, and then I'm officially start breaking the game. I officially start having players just really flipping the damn table on me. I'm not laughing. This is not actually not something funny. This is where I think it starts to be broken. This is where I think it just creates the possibility of, this combo damaging the game. So, yeah, it is kind of getting to the point where this is all a little bit too much. And look at what I have with the Necron. Obviously, I'm running those Warriors of Gidrim. Now that's just one cost, but they're getting additional command icon for 2 non-faction units that I control. Obviously, I do because I have so many things that are changing. Those enslavement dial flips, and I do have 3 copies of promotion just to control that command game. So I don't really need those barks or whatever they have, 2, 4, 5 command icons. With those 2 small cards, I'm really buffing my command game. Yeah, obviously I have Immortal Vanguards. So all that swarmy bits and bobs I can choose to give warrior trade, and they all getting +1 HP, +1 attack. 2/2 if I have 2 copies in a final battle. And obviously, probably I will run like 2 copies of Doomsday Arc. It's just because I have so many non-Necron factions, and yeah, if the Neophyte works with it, well, I'm pretty okay. With the Block Claw pack works with it, well, I'm pretty okay, And most probably, where's this guy? Earthcast Technician on drone trade. It will help me to draw that card. At some point, I'm getting it. I actually ran 4 games with this Warlord, and there was no single one where I didn't drop my deck below 30 within 3-4 first rounds. So I'm pretty sick with all this recycle, additional bonuses from Celtic Complex. I do have actually a copy of the Elder Council that I actually considered, because I do play my hand really till almost minimum, as it's all cheap stuff that you can really afford to deploy. So you constantly use those cards. And I did consider also to have a copy of Master Program, but I'm still considering it as I don't have too many Necron units. Obviously, I kind of decide to give a drone trade to all my units, and then I can protect that Doomsday Arc at some point. But it's not really something I fancy. Not really necessary, I think. I have already enough in here to win the game, and with a player like me who really is experienced about commitments, command the game. I played Ragnar for many years, so I do really can predict what's going to be your move quite easily. You're facing a little tough game, I would say, and I dare to say, with this deck built in this way, I'm breaking pretty much everything. What's coming my way. I could be wrong. Still probably need to test that. But I will definitely going to post this for Apoka to be aware, and try on the way of changing this Warlord, or tweaking him a little bit different, as in my opinion it's just a little bit too powerful in the way that it plays. Yeah, but it's like I said, this is part of a playtest. It's still open for discussion, so don't be too worried, guys. No one's planning to break the game. Probably one of the reasons why this Warlord was hidden for so long. And yeah, I am pretty happy that Apoka actually keeps working on those cards and keeps adding new stuff for our community. I haven't been really active in the playtesting role for a while now, but whenever I have a time, I wish to share some of my thoughts. This is what I was thinking today in the morning when I wake up, just to kind of what I could build, and quickly after 1-2 hours of trying, I came out with pretty sick ideas on this guy. So pretty dangerous. Obviously the most important card here, it's the pledge, like I said, the Celtic Dynasty. That really gives because, with all those little cards, the Celtic Complex support and Celtic Dynasty Pledge card working together, multi non-faction aspect, the commands boost, the Doomsday Arc, and all of those nasty bonuses that you can actually decide and differently choose with your Warlord, you have like perfect synergy that works for you, whatever hand you may have. So yeah, like I mentioned before, in a deck building skills, you're looking for synergy. Now, Necron faction is probably the best connected race, and funny enough, with a non-Necron deck, this Warlord, I'm combining those connections into pretty sick way. So yeah, I wonder what your thoughts are looking at what I just presented, and yeah, I'm kind of looking forward also to play against some of you guys with this deck, just for fun, to prove or disapprove my point. Anyway, this is not for our limit. I'm probably going to be hanging around for a little bit longer, just trying to help all of you guys to get it all better. So no offense, and see you next time. Hey.